So, good morning, everyone. We'll begin with the reflections on universal well-being. May I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may I maintain well-being in myself. May everyone abide in well-being, in freedom from hostility, in freedom from ill will, in freedom from anxiety, and may they maintain well-being in themselves. May all be released from all suffering, and may they not be parted from the good fortune they have attained. When they act upon intention, all beings are the owners of their action, and inherit its results. Their future is born from such action, companion to such action, and its results will be their home. All actions with intention, be they skillful or harmful, of such acts they will be the heirs. So good morning. Today I wanted to continue to read Ajahn Mun's biography, but I wanted to begin with just a reflection on you could say, the preciousness of human life. In current times, I think there's definitely a kind of the mainstream belief is that our minds, our kind of consciousness is a kind of phenomenon that arises from our brain. So our consciousness arises from materiality. And so when we die, we can just disappear. And if you extend this back in science, our story for our universe begins with this Big Bang. So imagine us as, at one point, was just this really solid or dense matter that then exploded, which became our current universe, became what we're experiencing now. And over the years, as this universe expanded, it developed life, and then from that life, somehow consciousness arose, and here we are, human beings, kind of a blip in this kind of huge cosmological story. But what happens though within this cosmological story, as well as this thinking of our consciousness as a result of the brain, is that human beings can feel fairly insignificant. You know, what we do doesn't really matter, because what's going to happen is this universe is going to collapse and everything is going to go back into matter. So our lives don't matter. Whereas the Buddhist perspective is quite different. That actually our, you could say, consciousness or our awareness is primary, and that matter is created from the mind as a kind of way that the mind labels experience. We create this kind of external world that then we objectify and make solid. And that how we use our mind moment to moment has profound influence on not just ourselves, but the entire universe. And what I find very interesting about this, and then I'll read Ajahn Mun's biography, is that within the Buddhist kind of way of seeing cosmology, is not that humans are somehow special, that our lives are so important, means that we're somehow special. Somehow we can dominate animals, or we can use the natural resources as we wish without sensitivity. Sometimes there's that story in, you could say, in the Judeo-Christian system, where humans are seen as kind of the given dominion over all of creation. We're kind of the lords of creation. Of course, God is above humans, but somehow humans can rule over animals and the earth. And that's not the story in Buddhism. Rather, in Buddhism, there's a sense of really taking our lives as important, as precious, but not moving into a place where we're oppressing or dominating everything else. The actual emphasis is on real service, on compassion, on care. So I wanted to just give that as a kind of a reframing as we read Ajahn Mun's biography, because I think it's interesting to see how he is able to interact with the entire universe, much more than I think most of us are connected to. And I think it's also helpful because, let's say, I'm maybe somewhat familiar with the Chinese culture, Chinese tradition, and oftentimes there is a belief in ghosts and spirits in this other realm, but oftentimes it's very hazy, and it's mixed up with a lot of fear, a lot of sometimes manipulation. I remember just a few weeks ago we were talking with Jin-Chuan Shi, saying one of the days that you have to make this kind of sticky, like mochi kind of stuff, because you're supposed to eat it and also offer it to the kitchen god, because the kitchen god's going to go up into the heavens and report about what you've done throughout the year. And so you want to give him something sticky to eat, so his mouth is sealed shut. They can't report what you said. It's like, okay, so we interact with the spiritual realm with a kind of bribery and manipulation and hazy. I'll say hazy. Fun stories, but really, where's the principle? And so here I wanted to read, because Ajahn Mun has direct experience with these realms, which I think is quite interesting. And Ajahn Mun, Ajahn Mahabua describes it. So he writes here, Acharya Mun's samadhi was strange and quite extraordinary. In all these different kinds of samadhi, I won't list them all. Sometimes he was involved with ghosts, sometimes with the devas, sometimes with the nagas. Innumerable worlds of existence were contacted by this type of samadhi. In this access level samadhi that Acharya Mun used to receive visitors whose forms were invisible to normal sight and whose voices were inaudible to normal hearing. Sometimes his chitta floated up out of his body, went off to look at the heavenly realms and different levels of the Brahma world. Then it traveled down into the regions of hell to look at the multitude of beings tormented by the results of their own karma. So Acharya Mun has real samadhi, so he can actually communicate with many different levels of being. The terms going up and going down are relative, conventional figures of speech, referring to the behavior of gross physical bodies. They have very little in common with the behavior of the chitta, that's the mind, which is something so subtle that is beyond temporal comparison. In terms of the physical body, going up and going down require a degree of earnest effort. But in terms of the citta, they are merely figures of speech with no degree of effort involved. When we say that the heavens, the Brahma realms, and Nibbana are progressively higher and more refined levels of existence, or that the realms of the hell consist of progressively lower levels of existence, we're in fact using a physical material standard to measure that which exists in a spiritual psychic dimension. So Buddhism puts forward as another dimension to our experience that's spiritual. We might say that hell and heaven, which are considered to be lower and higher respectively, are in some respects analogous to hardened criminals and petty offenders who live together in the same prison, which itself is located in a community of law-abiding citizens. There is no distinction in kind between the two types of prisoners because they all live together in the same prison. And there's no distinction in kind between them and the law-abiding citizens because they're all human beings living on the same land in the same country. What distinguishes them is the fact that they've been kept separated. At least the prison inmates and the general public can use their normal sense faculties to be aware of each other. But beings in the different spheres of existence are unaware of each other. Those living in the hell realms are unable to perceive those who are in the heavenly realms, and vice versa. Both groups are unable to perceive the Brahma world, and human beings in turn are unaware of all who are in these different realms of existence. Even though the flows of consciousness from each of these beings intermingle constantly as they pass through one another's sphere of existence, they are oblivious of others, as if it is theirs as the only group in existence. Ordinarily, our minds are unable to know the thoughts of others. Because of this inability, we might then reason that they do not really exist. No matter how persistent these denials might be, we would be wrong because all living beings possess a mind. Even though we are not aware of the thoughts of other beings, we have no right to deny that they exist, simply because we can't perceive them. We cannot afford to hold hostage within the limitations of our sense faculties the existence of things which are too subtle to see and hear. If we do, we are just fooling ourselves. When we say that the heavens and the Brahma worlds are arranged vertically in a series of realms, one shouldn't understand this in the gross material sense, such as a house with many stories requiring the use of stairs or an elevator. These realms exist in a spiritual dimension, and they are ascended in the spiritual sense by spiritual means. That is, by the heart, which has developed this sort of capacity through the practice of virtue. When we say that the hell is down below, this does not mean descending into an abyss. Rather, it refers to descent by spiritual means to its spiritual destination. And those who are able to observe the hell realms do so by virtue of their own internal psychic faculties. But those beings who fall into these realms do so through the power of their own evil karma. They remain there, experiencing whatever torment and agony is imposed on them by their own misdeeds, until they have completed their punishment and are released, in the same way that prison inmates are released at the end of their sentences. And it goes on. But to me, what I want to start with about the preciousness of our human life, or maybe you say this way, the preciousness of this existential moment is because what we do right now has profound implications, not with just our current state of mind, but our future states of being. And if we can truly cultivate ourselves in the here and now, perhaps we can open ourselves to a lot more than what we think is possible. So I just maybe offer that as a reflection for today, and just to maybe ask everyone, what do you believe is possible? How do you think our world is composed of? Do you take material matter to be primary? Or do you take our experience and our awareness as primary? And I think these actually are very important questions, because as we cultivate, the deeper assumptions we have of the universe, of ourselves, influence the deeper motivations and aspirations we have for our lives. Okay, so maybe just that much for today. And we can do 3 steps, 1 bow. And you can imagine we're just surrounded by other spiritual realms that we don't see. 好，我们来3步1拜。